I'll be right back.
Blog Talk Radio.
I'm Raina Stark, so you don't have to be. Desperate Housewives is not a G, PG, or even an R-rated show. So, bad language, bodily function, dirty talk of any kind might upset you. This is not the show for you. You know that's why you tuned in. Desperate Housewives is brought to you by the incredibly wicked one herself, the amazing Dorothy Morrison. Check out www.wickedwitchstudios.com for all of your witching needs. And this is it. Today is the last day. If you haven't gotten your Halloween candles, you better go get them. Because come 11:59 this evening, you will not be able to get them anymore. So, at least not this season, because season is happening now. Get your orders in. Get them while they're hot. Get them while they're fresh, or they're all lit by somebody else. Check out the social media page for www.wickedwitchstudios.com on Facebook. And tell her Raina sent you. Okay, so my wonderful guest today, the amazing Debra DeAngelo, whose new book is called Sacred Massage, is with me. But before we launch into talking about her book, I just got to tell everybody, I don't know. I just got back from New York. I have had barely enough time to wipe my own behind. Y'all know what it's like when you go see a family member. One is dying. One has got their one foot out the door. My mother, wow. Guys, I got to tell you, these fake Christians, watch out for these fake-ass Christians, boy. They preach about the love of Jesus, but when it comes to money, they're ultra grubby. And I have got a story for you. Oh, shit. Debra, you're on here with me, so I just got to relate the story. And you tell me what you think about all this bullshit. So, okay, so my auntie, everyone knows my aunt passed away a week ago tomorrow, and she didn't have family in the sense of she never married, never had children, and I come from a particularly crazy household, and my aunt loves me enough and knew that my father was trying to disinherit me because I did not stay Christian. He wanted me to stay Christian. I was like, yeah, it's bullshit, and I ran off and didn't do it. So my mother is still Christian. But, oh, my God, when it comes to money, these people are just unbelievable. She actually had the nerve to tell my cousin that everything in my dead aunt's apartment, now my aunt was her sister, my mother's sister, she told my cousin she didn't say not to touch anything. She said everything has to be preserved. And my cousin's like, what does she mean by preserved? I said, she means don't touch anything, leave it all for her. She's like, I thought that's what she meant, but surely she wouldn't mean that. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know who you've been dealing with. Everybody looks at my mother and thinks, oh, what a sweet, frail little old lady. My mother is a fucking shark, okay? A shark. Watch out for these people. They'll smile in your face and talk about love, Jesus. And I'm not saying that there are no true, sincere Christians. I'm just saying I ain't met them. Maybe one. In my entire 61 and a half years of life, I have met exactly one true Christian. Tell you that the rest of this is bullshit. She is about as grubby as could be. And she had the nerve to show up with my cousin yesterday at a bank and claim that the inheritance that had my cousin's name and my mother's name, that my mother should get all of it. My mother actually had the nerve to say, well, this is all supposed to be mine. She said everything was left for me. I was like, whoa, somebody else finally got to witness the bullshit from the Christian. I was astounded. Debra, your thoughts?
Well, the irony is I was just driving along today trying to get on the freeway, and there was, hardly anyone on the whole freeway, but this one car was right where I needed to merge on. An old Buick, like a 85 Buick. Wasn't going to let me on, wasn't going to scoot over, and so, I had to brake and slow down, and I went around, and I got to speed up, because the first thing that came through my mind was, thanks, asshole. I had to speed up and see, I want to see what this asshole looks like. She looked just like the church lady. And I just immediately had that thought of, I bet you're all about being nice on Sunday, but when it came to getting on the freeway, now I have the right of way. Here in California, people scoot over and let people on just because, why not? But I don't know. It's just funny that you mentioned that because the contrast between what they are supposed to be doing and what they are doing is sometimes really shocking. It's sometimes I think, if Jesus ever comes back, he's going to be like, who are you people? What are you doing?
Yeah. I sincerely think that if Jesus ever decided to come back, that he'd actually be hanging out with our asses saying, critical thinking is still important. Glad you guys have not abandoned it. Because apparently they have.
Yeah, remember who he hung out with. He didn't hang out with the other super religious folks. He hung out with everybody else. Yeah, I'm sorry you're going through this horrible experience. There's something about when absolute worst. And, old resentments come bubbling up and become weapons. And sometimes people that can't, they aren't comfortable experiencing grief, they transit into anger and lash out. And just people do so much weird stuff after somebody dies. It's just a big trigger. And often it's like, well, here comes all the family dysfunction. And I think one of the main things is people kind of lose. You're welcome. I think people lose the ability to empathize when they're in the thick of grief. They don't remember how might that person feel. It's just not there.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing, though. This is not new. This is not new behavior for my mother. This is just behavior now someone else, finally, after me saying stuff about this my whole life, someone else is actually starting to see firsthand at what she's really like. And it's grubby and it's disgusting. And it's not any different from who she has been her entire life. Everybody's like, well, she's old, or, well, she just lost her sister. I'm like, let me tell you a little story about my mother. When my father died, my mother and I were sitting at the kitchen table, and we were telling jokes and laughing and carrying on. The minute her phone rang, she turned into the most pathetic widow you had ever heard, like no one else in the world had ever lost a husband except for this woman. The minute she would hang up, man, she'd go back to laughing and joking with me like the phone call hadn't happened. I'm sorry, that kind of Oscar-winning performance is not even human. That is a fucking machine. And I will tell you, my mother is a fucking machine. And she finally showed it to somebody else for the very first time. Somebody else got to witness it. And all I can say is I felt terrible for my cousin who thought that my mother, was just misunderstood or just old and, maybe losing it a little bit. Oh, no. She's as cold and calculating as the day is long, and she has not changed a single iota in the last 80-plus years of her life. So this whole act of, oh, my sister, I'll never eat or drink again. I'll never take my medication again. Bullshit. Right after the funeral. Her caregiver was going through a drive-thru, and she rolls down the window, and my mother's like, what's that I smell? What's that I smell? And her caregiver turns to her and says, well, since you're not eating anymore, I'm still hungry. I want to get something to eat. Would you like some of mine? And my mother says, no, I think I want one of my own. Oh, so much for the whole mother love and sacrifice. I'm never going to eat again. I'm never going to take my meds again. Oh, please. It didn't even last 5 hours. Stop. These acts are so fucking ridiculous. Listen, I was raised in the Pentecostal church, and I see the bullshit, and I've always seen the bullshit, and I have so many people tell me all the time, yeah, but, you know, you just have to look to Jesus. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going there with you. I've seen too much. And this is coming from people who have no idea about the inner workings of the church and its people. Again, I'm not saying that all Christians are shit, but I will tell you most of the ones I've met are. 99.9% are all liars and sinners. It's one thing,
and you know,
listen, it's one thing to want to do better and want to live a faith. I live my faith. My God say yes, my God say no. It's at their whim. That's my loyalty. Those are my deities. That's my choice. All gods are not all good or all bad. They are what they are. They make the judgments they make. Again, sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. But that's the way it is. I just hate that holier than thou shit, don't you?
The worst one is that me. I guess because I've had many opportunities to experience grief in my life. The one that gets to me is, we'll pray for you. We'll pray for you. Yeah. Really? What a lot flipping good that's going to do for me. Or I'll see somebody else lost a child or their house burned down. We'll pray for you. Really? That's right up there with when all the politicians give their thoughts and prayers to everything. If I hear thoughts and prayers one more time, I'm going to barf. But yeah, the hypocrisy is really frustrating and shocking. I mean, I'm an expat when it comes to Christianity. I walked out on it. Let's see, holy cow, maybe 1992, 93, somewhere around there. But it was here in my little town. You know, Christianity was like, that was kind of the only game in town, and I hadn't found my pagan past any sort of way yet. I knew I was different, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't have any vocabulary, I didn't have any tools to figure out why do I not fit in. But there was one day when I was driving my kids to church, and they were going to talk about how they were going to go on a big campaign to ban books. I mean, ban books like, you know, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and Catcher in the Rye. And I went, I'm a writer. I don't believe in this. And I just kept driving, and I never went back. And they called me for weeks, like, we miss you in church. There's another bullshit statement. We miss you in church. When the pastor says that to you, he doesn't miss you. He wants to know why you weren't there, and he wants an answer right now. There was no missing involved. And, you know, little by little I kind of wrenched free from it, but it did leave a really bad taste in my mouth. And over the years, you know, I've had to recognize it's not Jesus I have a problem with. It's his followers. Not all of them. I know lots of good Christians, but I know lots of bad ones too. And, you know, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. At least pagans will say, well, I'm doing the best I can. Some days I screw up. Some days are good. Some are bad, but you won't get the holier than thou angle. And I just have a problem with any holier than thou. So I empathize with your pain and frustration, because when that kind of behavior comes from your own mother, I had a very cold mother. She was a woman of the 50s. She was one of the first women to become a physician, but yet she was still expected to have kids, and I don't think she ever wanted kids. I know for certain she didn't want me. And my dad wanted her to have kids, and she plowed through it, and she had kids, but she had zero interest in kids. My mother never said I love you to me until she was on her deathbed, literally on her deathbed and on heavy medication. I only heard her say it one time in my whole life. And so I had to go back and pick through what happened here. And the conclusion I came to, it's like, you know, take your emotion outside of it. She didn't want to have kids. She was forced to have kids. She and I didn't get along. We were spiritually not the same people, just as incompatible as we could possibly be. And I finally had to face the ugly fact. He didn't love me. And that was that. And the hard part is separating your anger from it and just looking at it as a fact. Like, well, that's a black rock. She didn't love me. But the problem then, you can get to the point where you can separate and say, okay, it just is what it is. This is the card I was dealt. She didn't want me. That's that. But when your own mother doesn't love you or treat you well, it's like you've been slashed across the face with a knife, and it leaves an ugly scar. And you see it every day. The scar might not hurt, but it's there every day, and that little thread runs through your mind. Well, your own mother didn't even love you or anybody else. Yeah. That poison that gets in there, it's really rough when it's your own mother. And she died when I was 27. I'm now 64, and I still have anger over this about, why was I so hard to love? Why couldn't you love me just a little? But it just it wasn't there. It was what it was. So I empathize with your pain. It's painful.
Oh yeah, it's and it's interesting that you mentioned that because and I have no problem saying this stuff out loud because I just don't care, and I know it's not just me. But when my parents got married, it was because my mother was pregnant. And my father only wanted a son if he was ever going to have a child. My mother didn't want to be pregnant, and my father was extraordinarily abusive in every possible way. And my mother let it all happen. So, and I used to say to my aunt, the one who just passed away, why? Why did she even bother? Why didn't she give me up for adoption, or why didn't she take any other route? And basically, I was a convenient tool to get her away from her own mother and into her own home and made my father marry her. So it's like all I was a vehicle for my mother to get from point A to point B. And once my father saw that I wasn't male, my life was going to be shit from then on. Here's the interesting part. My father was so abusive, I had always put my mother in the victim position because she was terrified of him. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I realized, oh, no. She's no victim. Not only did she let this happen, but she would throw me at him so that the attack would be on me instead of her. She used me as like a human shield against his anger and violence and the horrific things he would say and do. So, yeah, it's just remarkable how these things stay with you, how they inform your relationship, and it takes so long to break that cycle. When I was with my mother last week, I said to her, do you understand why I had more than one child? And she said, why? And I said, because if I turned out to be as psycho as my old man, I wanted my kids to at least have each other so that they would know we're not crazy. It's her. She's the one who's batshit. Well, I mean, I am batshit, but not like my old man. But this is exactly why I had more than one child, because I was terrified that if I went crazy like him, that they would, if I only had one, they would suffer by themselves and be terrified and have no one to talk to or relate to. Because anyone I tried to, what was happening in my house when I was a kid, a lot of the times back then, kids were not believed. I'm 61, almost 62. And, parents stood together. It didn't matter back in those days, as well It was very hard to get an adult to believe a child.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We suffered a lot of bullshit because no one would take our side, you and I. Don't you think? Did you have sympathy?
Oh, I do. I did have a younger sister, but my dad he was a World War II veteran and came out of it horrifically PTSD, which led to alcoholism and a lot of emotional instability. And I really relate to, he thought people were always out to kill us. So I grew up hearing that anytime you step out of the house, somebody's going to grab you. And so this insanity spiraled and spiraled, but I really related to what you said about your mother not protecting you, because my mother knew it wasn't true, and she went along with it, you know, and he got sicker and sicker and sicker. I mean, he would do scary shit. Like he would come to our bedrooms at night and say, "Shh, get under the bed, because there's somebody outside." And he'd have his army rifle. "There's somebody outside. I'm going to go find him. You stay under the bed." And we would scurry under the bed. And he would go outside and patrol. And I could see he carried a flashlight, see the flashlight still to this day going across the window when he was looking for people that weren't there. And my mother knew. This was, see, my resentment coming up. Damn it, she knew. And she didn't say, "Your dad's got this problem. Those things aren't really happening. There aren't people out to get you." Nope, she went along with it because it was easier, you know.
Yep.
So,
yep.
And when I in high school, here are these topics are crossing again. We had this organization in high school called Campus Life or Young Life, one or the other. I forget which it was, but it was Christian-based. And there was one guy that was the leader, and I didn't know who to go to because I in my little teenager head, I called my dad's psychiatrist one day while he was beating up my mother. And I said, "This is happening." And he said, "Well, what do you want me to do about it?" I don't know.
Wow.
You're his doctor. I thought maybe you would do something about it. But so I got nothing there. So I turned to the Campus Life counselor, who was a senior in high school and I was a freshman. And I said, I need to talk to somebody. So we met at the local cafe for coffee one evening, and I recounted what was going on in my house. The people are out to get us, and the drinking, and the nonsense, and the chaos, and everything. And he looked at me, and he said, "Come on, both your parents are doctors. I know you're making all this up, and if you wanted me to ask you out on a date, you could have just said so." And I just stared at him like, You're so far off base. I am literally having this problem. So that was the last time I sought out help, and it became sink or swim. Every child for themselves, sink or swim. And you know, over the many years of looking at the whole thing, I recognized my dad was very sick from the war, very sick, and alcoholism didn't help. But I can give my dad a pass. He had some legit reasons to have the problems he had. But my mother, it's like, so what's your excuse? What the hell? So it just goes to show you can be decades later. You can be. I am now older than both of them, and I still don't get it. You know, you look back and go, I don't get it. It seems like I should have been a child that a mother could have loved, but you know, there's good things that come out of it. Like you had your kids, you wanted them to have each other. Well, I had the fashion don'ts of parents, and I made sure I said to my kids, "I love you" every day. I told them that every day. They get sick. I know you love us, you know, but it taught me what not to be. It didn't give me a very good template. I would give myself a C+ as a parent, but talk about fumbling in the dark. You know, I had kids before there was internet, and I had no mother template, and I had family around, so literally just winging it. You know?
Same. No internet. No, you know, I read as many books as I could get my hands on, but I had no template. I had, you know, when my kids were born, their grandmother never showed up. My mother never even kept my kids for 2 hours by herself. Never, ever. Not once, not ever. They never stayed over at her house. She, you know, at the point that my father passed away, which was 24 years ago, and my kids are in their early 30s, their grandmother could have been a force for good in their lives. But she refused to be bothered. She refused to come and visit. I even said to her at one point, "Why don't you sell the house in New York? You can get a house here in North Carolina, and you'll get much more bang for your buck. Well, that was back then. And we'll be close. There's a church on every corner if you want to preach, and there is. But she flatly refused. She was never going to leave New York. She's never going to leave New York. That's her house, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a house in New York. You could outright pay for your next house here. Wouldn't hear of it. Absolutely refused. And said, well, I can't leave my friends, and I can't leave my sister. Her sister is the one who just passed, obviously, because everyone else in the family is either dead. I'm down here. My cousin's further down in Florida. So it's not like she had family all over the place. One would have thought she'd want to be near her grandchildren. But that's just not the kind of person she is. She just doesn't love that way. What my mother loves is money. And that's become quite apparent as every day has passed during my life, but that is all she really fucking cares about, because she doesn't obviously care about me, because when I was getting beaten by the father of my children, husband number 2, I actually had the nerve to ask her if I could come home with my kids to escape, and she said no. That's not a good idea, because my father was still alive, and my father hated me, and my father was, my father did not have the excuse of being in a war. My father was just nuts, and not nuts, like literally certifiably bipolar, manic depressive, all completely undiagnosed and untreated, because they didn't know those words back then. They labeled him as a quote-unquote nervous person. So, of course, in my house, and tell me if you had this too, there was the wall of pills. Like there was a closet devoted, the linen closet had a metal rack installed on it so that my father could put all of his Tuinol, Seconal, Valium, Quaaludes, every kind of depressant, every kind of blood pressure medication and cholesterol medication. And listen, my father's the first person I cast a spell on. I did a witch's ladder to kill him, but I only put him in the hospital because I was young and stupid and didn't know what I was doing. But true enough, that's exactly what happened. And I was just so terrified that his illness, because I didn't know when he first became ill. All I knew was that my entire life he was sick. But I always think, well, maybe you were normal at some point. I mean, I was a kid thinking this. Obviously, some people are born with certain genetic modifications. It happens. But, yeah, my father was the most brilliant, smartest, most clever, best singer, could speak 9 languages fluently, and the most dangerous person.
They sound so much alike. My dad spoke 5 languages.
Yeah, and they're brilliant, and that's how they twist things around, and that's how they get into your brain, and that's how they manipulate you and the world around them.
But
it's like a parasite. Yeah. I'm sorry, say it again?
My dad was like that too. The emotional manipulation was something. Yeah. It was really something. So
you could say good morning, and it would be, even a simple good morning could be turned into an argument very artfully. And you would
you learn to walk on eggshells, and you learn to be invisible. You learn to be like a mouse running the side of the wall to not attract attention. That was the thing in our house. Don't attract any attention because it could be very bad. Better to be invisible. Yeah. I am the master of invisibility. Watch me disappear into this wall. So, but it sounds like, you and I have so much in common. I mean, when you have your whole foundation in life is trauma. It just takes a long, long time to get some distance and look back on it and go, well, that was hell. And I don't think you ever get out of the traumatic young life unscarred. There's certain things that still happen. One thing that still happens to me, if someone yells at me, my brain freezes. Mm-hmm. I'm just like a deer in the headlights. And I recently saw this program on brain anatomy that said in some people there's literally a place in your brain that will freeze and decide fight or flight, or if you're the deer, stand there and get hit by the car. But I went, you get an actual biological response from trauma, and that's still with me. I still have trouble with that one. If somebody yells at me, it's about all I can do to take a breath and respond to it immediately. I'm really good at 5 days later figuring out what I should have said. But dealing with something right now on the spot, being immediate, that's a big challenge for me because my brain freezes up. It says, God, just hold still. Maybe you won't get hit. It's you spend the rest of your life trying to unravel all that stuff and hopefully not repeat it, like not let it be a legacy, but let it just be what it was and live anyway. What else can you do? And try not to repeat the mistakes. I still to this day, when I'm stumped by a decision, I'll think, what would my mother have done? And then I do the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still my
mother is still a fantastic actress because my mother could almost convince you. See, my mother, a very intelligent woman, but not nearly as crafty and diabolical as my father. Just crazy. But always crazy, not like old age crazy. My mother pretends that she doesn't know things that she absolutely knows. For example, my mother very conveniently forgot the conversation where I asked her if I could come home because my ex-husband was visiting me. That didn't happen in her head. I'm like, really? Well, what about this conversation that you were standing there for? What about that conversation that you were standing there for? And she conveniently doesn't remember anything unless it pertains directly to her, because then she wants to tell you about, all the shitty things he did to her. And I'm like, yeah, but you were supposed to be the adult protecting me, not the other way around.
That's the rub right there.
Really, it's like, that's your job. Your fucking first job as a parent. Protect your child. Period. Mm-hmm. Protect your child. When my ex-husband, the last time my ex-husband hit me, and I had called my mother and I said, can I come home? And she had said no. The next thing I thought was, I have to figure out how I'm going to get my kids away from this guy, not because he was going to hit them, but because I didn't want them to think he was an acceptable example, because he wasn't. So that's there's just...
My first marriage was, Yeah,
just crazy. But anyway, enough about that. We could talk about that for 2 hours, couldn't we? Holy shit.
Yeah, we probably should sit out on the porch with a bottle of wine and just purge all this stuff.
Period. But to swing this into your book, because touch is so healing, or it could be so healing, especially for folks like us who have been so emotionally damaged. What do you have as a suggestion? And the book is really beautiful, by the way, because you talk about crystals and you talk about oils and you talk about having a buddy to practice on and having a buddy practice on you. What do you say for folks who don't necessarily have somebody that they can work through these exercises with?
That's really hard. Now, bear in mind that the gist of the book is to learn to give massage to somebody else. Right. So it's learning to provide for friends, family, a child. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a buddy to practice on, then your loved one or friend will have to do. But you do sort of need a body to work on to learn the moves. That said, learn the magical spiritual piece of all of this, and just with your touch, just touch by itself can soothe. Yeah. I will say one thing about the Christian thing of the laying on of the hands. I don't know if they're passing miracles or not, but they did have that right. Laying on of the hands can do wonders. So the thing is, though, if you start checking around with your friends, you say, hey, I have this massage book and I want to learn how to do this. Could I give you free massage for a while? And most people are like, oh, yes. When can I come over?
No. So, very few people will say no, that's for sure.
Nobody's going to say no to that. So think about coworkers, friends, family members, relatives, cast a wide net. And if nothing else, if you can find another person who also has this need, then you can learn together, you can find, especially if you have like a parent in a nursing home, you're going to meet other people that are struggling with this. Or if you have a small child, you go to parenting classes, you're going to meet other parents. Like, for example, parents who have kids with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Frequently there's a support group or there's a network, and somebody could say, I think this could help my child, but I need someone to practice with. Anybody interested? I know as in my training, when I went to massage school, anybody I said, could I practice massage on you? They're like, oh, yeah. I mean, I'm up on the table now. I never had a shortage of volunteers. Strongly recommend you have a volunteer. If it's just not possible, then, you can go bit by bit with your loved one and start the easy places. Start with the hands, start with the head, start with the feet, start with the shoulders. Those things are safe spots, but especially a hand, just start with holding a hand and feeling the warmth and feeling the energy. You can slowly feel between the bones. This is one of the really basic things about providing massage, is learning where the bones are and going between them. If you run your thumb and forefinger over your hand between the bones, you'll feel the soft grooves between the bones, and you can feel it in your forearms. Those are the places you want to go. So even if you had a small percentage of the skills, you could still really provide comfort to someone. Particularly, the elderly in rest homes. I started researching about, the averages with the elderly in rest homes, but one of their main problems is they're starving for touch. Just starved for it. Yeah. They become not a person but a thing, and they're handled like a thing I have to wash, a thing I have to feed, a thing I have to change the diapers. They lose their sense of being a human being rather than a thing that somebody takes care of. And so the touch that they do get, that it doesn't have any love or healing. I remember my massage teacher saying that you could have an excellent massage therapist who didn't have healing, loving intentions, and you could have your spouse who had zero massage training put his hands on you or her hands on you, and it would provide more healing than the therapist who had no feeling for you at all. So you pick up emotional intention and vibration from people. Sure, sometimes you see a massage therapist because you have a specific injury and you're not there to be, soothed and taken to another level. That's a particular kind of massage, and that's not really what I'm talking about. That kind of massage is necessary too. But the kind in this book specifically is about how do I create this warm, safe place for this person to relax and allow their body to heal and allow them to receive healing energy from the universe. And it's not going to turn you into a massage therapist, although it may interest some people. They may go, hey, I kind of like this. I think I want to go to massage school. That's a possibility. So you won't read the book and have a certificate in anything, and you won't read the book and legally be able to go charge and give massage or call yourself a massage therapist. But what you can do, you'll be the most popular person at every family gathering. That's for sure.
No doubt.
But
every party.
There's so many reasons why people might need massage. I mean, just not drowning in despair from the way the world is right now. You could get a buddy like, are you screwed up? Are you stressed about the world between the climate and the politics and the war and the this and the that and the COVID and on and on and on? Yeah, I'm stressed too. Well, let's learn to do this. We could trade and help each other relax because, let's face it, massage is expensive. I think it's worth every penny, and I go every week myself. I practice what I preach. But not everybody can afford it, and that's really the other gist of this book, is it's a shame that everybody can't afford it. And in India, when I took Ayurveda massage, I learned that it's considered health maintenance, and it's part of life. And family members routinely give each other massage. You can go by in the streets in some of the cities, and they have little kiosks where you can go in and get an Ayurvedic massage. It's just recognized as necessary for health, and I think our country could do well. Can you imagine if everybody got a massage every week? What a better country it would be.
Holy shit. I think it would be amazing. Tell me about how you got involved in massage in the first place.
How I got massage in the first place. I got divorced. So I was working as a newspaper editor full time, and I had 2 young kids. And my first marriage, I finally came to realize I was in a burning house, and either I was going to get myself out of the house or I was going to die. And I got out of that marriage, just like you were saying. I didn't want to be the kind of woman that my kids watched being abused and learned that this behavior was okay. It wasn't okay, so I got out. And then I went, well, you know, the only profession you can make less money at than journalism is a job where you say, you want fries with that? All day. You know, it's terrible pay and high stress. And I wasn't going to make it on the one income, and I thought, well, what else can I do? And I thought, I don't want to be at the computer more. I'm already at a computer all day. And ironically, I had just written a story about a guy here in town that did massage. And he did a little back demo on me, a back massage, because I said, I don't know what that's all about. And I thought back to that, and I went, well, that was kind of interesting. Maybe I could do that. That's about as far away as you can get from journalism. It's the polar opposite end of the world. And turns out there was a great massage school right in the next town over, and I went over and checked it out. And, you know, one thing led to another, and it was one of those feelings. Sometimes the universe gives you the little gut tap. That door is open. Jump through it. Jump now. You know, like I guess it's kind of like skydiving. Jump now. You get the urge to jump, and I got the urge. And usually when I followed that urge, it usually turns out good. I've had a few big disasters. The first marriage, top of that list. But I think I was just drawn to it. I had just turned 40, and I was about maybe 6 or 7 years out from being involved in the Christian church and still spiritually searching. And I had started to discover a few pagan things between church and that point. And was opening my eyes to, there are other ways to feel and other ways to be and other ways to live. And I want to find out all about that stuff. And massage at that point in my life and paganism, they kind of grew up together in my life. But it just appealed to me. I think, you know what it was? When you're on a massage table, and there's another person working on you, you're finally safe. Nothing bad can happen to you there. It's like, that was such a big deal to me, to feel safe. Even if it was just for an hour, somebody's going to take care of me for an hour. And, you know, my mother, as we mentioned, she didn't want kids. She was not affectionate. She didn't touch us or anything, or hold us or any of that stuff. So to have touch, it's like, oh my God, I've been starving for touch my whole life, and not sexual touch. I knew all about that.
Right.
But this kind of touch that said, you're safe. Under my hands, nothing bad will happen to you. And that feeling is really precious. If you've had a traumatic background where you didn't feel safe with the people who should have kept you safe, it's one of the ways massage is a really healing experience.
That's pretty incredible. I've had massage for injury before, but it's very rare that I can afford to stop and get just a massage to get one. But I think I'm going to have to figure it out, because you're right. It's even when it was for kind of like more of a corrective massage, I did feel safe. It is interesting that you say that. Safety is a very big deal with people like you and me. And I think most people, because It is. And as I've gone through life, you know, we talk about these extreme circumstances of abuse, and it kind of sucks, but I've come to realize that we're more the rule than the exception. There's actually very few people who have not been abused. And it just, when I realized that those numbers were really starting to turn in such a horrible way, I'm like, no, we're not actually the rarity here. There's more people like us who could benefit from massage and safe touch than not. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing you're helping people learn about that they can do in the safety of their homes or a quiet corner of an office. You know, if you have a friend who's willing, I actually do have a friend who will be willing as soon as I tell her that.
If you imagine, let's say yourself feeling stressed. So if you imagine, okay, I'm just sitting here in this chair, and someone's going to take their warm, soft hands and just smooth my hair from my forehead to the back, pull my hair and smooth it down. You can imagine feeling relaxed already. If I just sat still and someone just did this to me, you know, and for people that touch, besides trauma, people that have had traumatic touch, like sexual abuse survivors, rape survivors, to learn to be touched in a safe way is a big deal, you know, because you kind of, especially if you've been traumatized by that, you kind of extrapolate to all touch could be dangerous. Like, do I ever really relax? Sort of like I have clients with fibromyalgia. So with fibromyalgia, their nerve endings perceive touch as pain. And some massage therapists feel like, no, I need to get in there and dig at that. No, you really don't. If that person says it hurts, then it hurts. And so fibromyalgia people, I tell some of them, I said, I'm going to pretend you're a bubble and I can't break it. And they over time, this is the great part, my fibromyalgia people that have been with me for a while, their bodies and nerve endings slowly discovered touch isn't pain. This is okay, you know, and they became desensitized to it. But I've had people almost in tears tell me about massage therapists that they didn't really believe their fibromyalgia and, you know, proceeded to do this anyway. It really hurts me when I hear a massage therapist proceed like that, because it's supposed to be about the person, not your own ego that says, well, I need to work this knot out. No, you don't. You can work that knot another day and give the person what they need, you know. So once again, ego is the thing that gets in the way.
And I think that, you know, once you've established a real relationship and a person feels safe with you, they may be willing to work through that trauma with you. But if you're just going to go in and be like, well, this is what we have to do, that person's not going to return. And that's actually what happened to me, not because of fibromyalgia, but because I have a level of damage that, you know, when I go for the times that I've gone for massage, so one of the first things they've wanted to do is twist my neck, which for me is completely traumatizing. You know, most people, when someone does that quick twist of the neck on them, they love it, and they hear all that cracking sound. I detest.
You had massage therapists do this?
Yes. That's
illegal. Yes. It's not even legal for them to do that. That's chiropractic. That's crazy.
But it has happened to me, and I guess this guy just thought he knew how to straighten out my neck, and you know, and he did it once, and then he did it again another time, and I wound up on the floor in tears because the pain was excruciating, and I actually stopped going to massage therapy because of it.
That is awful.
Everyone's not a jerk. I just happen to have some experiences with jerky guys. I mean, what can I say? I've been married 3 times. It's not me.
You're the magnet for that. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, at my age, I'm glad I'm not a magnet for anything anymore except for, like, the normal treats. And, I mean, I still can't turn my head but, like, an inch either direction. But, yeah.
Yeah, you need a real chiropractor that knows what they're doing. A massage therapist is not a chiropractor. They could paralyze you if they don't know what they're doing. That's not message.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same thing. So if anybody tries any...
What was that?
Go for what? I was going to say, don't let anybody practice on you.
No, that you should... Massage therapists are not supposed to adjust the neck and spine. We can stretch things and bend things, but we're not supposed to be doing that. It's not a license for chiropractic, so no. There are some modalities that are rough, like shiatsu can be painful and deep, and Feldenkrais can be, very manipulating the body, this and that, but they're not supposed to be doing chiropractic adjustments. But I would seek out, if you're a massage newbie or you've had a bad experience like that, ask if they do Swedish massage. And if you're real hesitant, say, I want a light Swedish massage. And Swedish massage is the classic. Long, smooth strokes, soothing and slow. And that's a good, gentle place to start. If they do sports massage or they say they do deep tissue, you're going to get into some heavy work. So aim for the Swedish massage.
Until you at least are used to getting massage. I guess it's like don't jump into the deep end of the pool immediately until you know how to swim, huh?
Well, yeah, get used to it and then find someone you like. I mean, you can find, they have massage therapists like in salons. That's not my favorite place to go. I call those people fluff and buff. And the reason I don't like salons, first of all, you have to smell all the acrylic nails. And second of all, it's noisy as hell. And you need a quiet spot to sink into your massage. But, I mean, it's there. It's available if that's all you have access to. But usually there are massage offices. Check those out. Or offices that are specific to massage and maybe acupuncture, that sort of thing. But if they do hair and nails in the same place, it's probably not going to be your best experience. But you may have to shop around a little bit. It's okay to go massage shopping, and it's okay to ask people, hey, do you get massage? Where do you go? What happens? Is that a good place? And it may take you a couple tries, but it's like the best research you'll ever do. Go out and get massage until you find someone you like. But
absolutely.
You become your body becomes so adapted to it that by the time it's time for me to see my own massage therapist, I'm just aching. It's like, I got to see her. If she's on vacation, it's like, no. And, I have the people that come to me regularly tell me the same thing. It becomes part of your health care where you don't feel well if you don't get that massage and get that touch and the muscles relaxed and things like that. And it helps you live a better life, pain all the time and tight all the time. And, if you have trauma or current or past trauma, a lot of times you hold that in a certain place in your body. Like if you have anxiety, I know I deal with it myself. When I'm really having anxiety, my shoulders creep up to my ears, and I have to think, okay, drop your shoulders down. But if you're not aware of how your body responds to emotional things, you might not be aware that maybe you're jiggling your leg all the time, or you're sitting on your hands, or you're grinding your teeth, or you're scrunching up your shoulders, or frowning your eyebrows. All those things create stress in the body, and they tell your body on a biological level that we're not safe, or we're aggravated, or we're not pleased. So it's like a self-perpetuating loop. So you want to purge all that stuff.
Definitely. That's really interesting. Because you said you feel your shoulders go up, and I do the exact same thing. And I felt my shoulders go up, and I'm like, okay, in this moment. And I'm like, okay, put
Wow.
your shoulders back down. You don't need to raise those right now. Everything's fine. But, yeah, you and I are, like, way too much on the same wavelength. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Deborah, I know I talked your ear off for, like, most of the hour, but tell folks, are you writing anything else now? What are you in the middle of? You must be writing something else.
Got another contract with Llewellyn.
Yay!
They're just so lovely and wonderful. I am writing a follow-up to Pagan Curious. So
Nice.
Pagan Curious was the beginner's book. This is the pagan community, and this is this stuff, and these are those people, and this is that practice. Here's all the stuff. And I had proposed an entirely different book, and my editor said, you know, you're all over the place. You wrote about horses and massage and pagan. She says, how about you stick with one track? I went, what? Pay attention and finish something? Really? But she gave me an idea. She said, do a follow-up to the Pagan Curious book. And so I asked people who read it, I said, what would you want in another book? Because I was stumped. It's like, I like blew my whole wad in that book. Like, I don't know what else possibly I could write about. I wrote about everything. And one person said to me, well, I know what everything is, but now I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, bingo. So now I'm writing another book, the next step up. Now that you know what all this stuff is, here's going to be some ways you can put it to use in your own life. Not that you have to go out and be in a ritual or go out and join a coven, but in your own daily life, how do you make all this happen? So that's coming up next.
Cool. I'm very excited about that. And in the couple of seconds we have left, well, the minute and a half we have left, tell folks how they can find you.
Oh, I have a website, DebraDeAngelo.com. I am on Twitter as myself. I am on Facebook in two ways, Debra DeAngelo and Garden Variety Pagan, which was going to be the title of Pagan Curious, but it's not. So I love to say I'm a Garden Variety Pagan. And I'm also Garden Variety Pagan on Instagram. So, yeah, that's me, little plain old average Garden Variety Pagan. Just a little happy little dandelion growing in the crack of the sidewalk.
That's so sweet. My mentor used to call us gardenias instead of gardnerians. He's like, we sort of follow the gardnerian tradition, but not exactly.
Gardenias, I love it.
Yeah, we didn't like the sexism. We didn't like the abuse. We didn't like a lot of the shit from the olden days. So my mentor was like, yeah, we're not doing all that. So, yeah, I was kind of raised right, so to speak. But anyway, Deborah, you are such a love to come and hang out with me and to put up with my family bullshit. You're such fun, and I really appreciate it. Will you come back and hang out with me for your next book?
I absolutely will, or any other time, or just for no reason at all. I wish you lived next door.
Love it. I know, right? Oh, we would get into so much trouble. Girl, please. Are you kidding?
So much trouble.
Oh, my gosh. It's my middle name. All right, guys. That's it for today. The book, again, is Sacred Massage, The Magic and Ritual of Soothing Touch, Debra DeAngelo. Go get a copy. Get it for somebody you love. Get it for somebody you like. They could turn into somebody you love. You never know. Anyway, have a great week, everybody. Taliesin and I are off tomorrow night. He's still moving into the new house. So I'll see you next week. Take care.